The United States 1-cent coin of 1974, bearing the D Mint mark, was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities responsible for striking circulation coinage for the nation. This coin, known popularly as the Lincoln Memorial Cent, features the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, which has appeared on the U.S. penny since 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The obverse front of the coin displays Lincoln's bust facing right, designed by Victor David Brenner, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," centered along the top rim, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1974 along with the D Mint mark just below the date on the right side, identifying its origin at the Denver facility. The reverse back of the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, an image designed by Frank Gasparo and introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. The words "United States of America" curve along the upper rim. "E pluribus unum" is placed above the memorial, and the denomination 1 cent is centered below. The 1974 D penny is composed primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc, following the long-standing bronze composition used since 1962. However, 1974 is historically significant because it was the year the U.S. Mint experimented with aluminum cents, attempting to reduce rising production costs caused by the increasing price of copper. Although about 1.5 million aluminum test cents were struck, none were officially released for circulation. Nearly all were melted down, and the few surviving examples are considered extremely rare and illegal to own. The Denver Mint produced over 4.2 billion copper cents that year, making the 1974 D penny one of the more common issues of the Lincoln Memorial series. Its weight is approximately 3.11 grams, diameter 19 millimeters, and it features a plain edge, no reading. In terms of collectability, most 1974 D Lincoln cents hold only face value in circulated condition due to their large mintage. However, uncirculated specimens in pristine condition, particularly those graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, can command modest premiums among collectors. Errors and varieties, such as off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet flaws, may significantly increase a coin's value. The lettering, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," should be fully struck and sharp. Weak or incomplete impressions might indicate a worn die, but generally do not affect value unless dramatically misprinted. The shine and color of the coin can vary, with original red luster, red designation, being the most desirable, followed by red-brown and brown as oxidation increases over time. Overall, the 1974 D1 cent coin stands as a small but meaningful piece of American numismatic history, representing both continuity and transition within the Lincoln cent series. It reflects the economic challenges of the 1970s, the government's experimentation with alternative metals, and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln's image on U.S. currency. Though common in circulation, it remains an excellent coin for beginning collectors, a reminder of American design tradition, and a tangible artifact of the nation's economic and cultural evolution in the 20th century. Next top. The United States 1976 D1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln Memorial Cent, is a small but significant piece of American numismatic history. It was minted during a pivotal year, the bicentennial year of the United States, celebrating 200 years of American independence, 1776 to 1976. While quarters, half dollars, and dollars from 1976 carried special dual-date bicentennial designs, the penny and other denominations such as nickels and dimes continued their usual designs. The 1976 D penny bears the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. On the obverse front of the coin, Lincoln's right-facing bust is surrounded by the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," along the upper rim, "Liberty" on the left, and the date 1976 with the D Mint mark for the Denver Mint on the right side, just below Lincoln's shoulder. This mint mark distinguishes it from those produced in Philadelphia, no mint mark, and San Francisco, S, and it identifies the coin as one struck in Denver, Colorado. The reverse side features the image of the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to replace the original wheat ears design that appeared from 1909 to 1958. The reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo, who later became chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. At the top, the coin reads United States of America with E pluribus unum, out of many one, just above the Lincoln Memorial. At the bottom, the denomination 1 cent is prominently displayed. If you look closely at the base of the memorial on some coins, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln's seated statue, a subtle but impressive detail symbolizing unity, freedom, and Lincoln's enduring legacy. In terms of composition, the 1976 D cent was made primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams and measuring 19 millimeters in diameter. This was before the 1982 changeover, when the U.S. Mint began producing cents from copper-plated zinc due to rising copper prices. The 1976 D penny therefore contains a relatively high intrinsic metal value, though still worth only about 1 cent in circulation unless it is in mint condition. The Denver Mint produced a massive 4,221,592,455 of these coins, over 4.2 billion pieces, which means they are quite common in circulation. However, the value of a 1976 D penny can vary widely based on its condition, strike quality, and any minting errors. In circulated condition, it is worth face value, but in uncirculated, mint state, or proof-like condition, collectors may pay a small premium, typically between 10 cents and $2 for average mint state examples. Those graded MS 67 or higher by professional services such as PCGS or NGC can reach values between $100 and $500, though such specimens are rare due to handling and mass production. Some 1976 D cents also exhibit die cracks, off-center strikes, double dies, or weak strikes, which can make them desirable among error collectors. The phrase, "In God We Trust," seen on the obverse, carries its own historical weight. First appearing on U.S. coins in 1864 during the Civil War, it became the official motto of the United States in 1956, representing faith and unity across the nation. Likewise, liberty reflects the foundational principle of American democracy, and its presence on the penny ties modern America to the ideals of freedom that Lincoln himself championed. Numismatically, the 1976 D penny marks a transitional moment in American coinage. Though it bears no special bicentennial design, it symbolizes the continuity of U.S. coin traditions through a milestone year. It also represents the last generation of true copper cents before the 1980s composition shift. Many collectors keep examples of this coin in their albums as part of a complete Lincoln Memorial Cent series, 1959 to 2008, which remains one of the most popular sets in U.S. numismatics due to its accessibility and historical depth. To summarize, the 1976 D Lincoln cent is a copper coin struck at the Denver Mint, featuring Abraham Lincoln, the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and 1976 D, with the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It was minted in vast quantities, but still holds both historic and sentimental value, representing not only the everyday currency of America's bicentennial year, but also a lasting tribute to Lincoln's leadership and the nation's enduring ideals of faith, liberty, and unity. Next top. The 1975 D Lincoln cent, often referred to as the United States of America 1 cent 1975 D In God We Trust Liberty coin, is a small yet historically meaningful piece of American numismatics struck by the Denver Mint in the year 1975. This coin is part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which was produced from 1959 to 2008, following the earlier wheat cent design, 1909 to 1958. The obverse front of the coin features the right-facing portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally sculpted by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Around the rim appear the inscriptions, "In God We Trust" at the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the date, 1975, followed by the small D mint mark for Denver on the right, just below Lincoln's shoulder. On the reverse back, designed by Frank Gasparo, is the Lincoln Memorial, flanked by the words United States of America above and E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, centered above the memorial, with the denomination 1 cent below. This design cleverly features a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making him visible on both sides of the coin, a subtle artistic detail that collectors admire. In terms of physical composition, the 1975 D penny was struck from 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams and measuring 19.05 millimeters in diameter. This composition had been standard since 1864, though in 1982 the U.S. Mint would later switch to a copper-plated zinc planchet to reduce production costs. Over 4.5 billion Lincoln cents were struck at the Denver Mint in 1975, making the coin quite common in circulation. Because of that high mintage, the 1975 D cent generally holds nominal monetary value, usually just face value in circulated condition. However, its value can increase significantly depending on mint errors and condition. Coins graded as MS 65 gem uncirculated or higher by professional services like PCGS or NGC can fetch between $1 and $5, while near-perfect specimens graded MS 67 or higher can reach $50 to $200, particularly if they display strong luster, sharp strikes, and no visible contact marks. Some rare error varieties also exist. Examples include off-center strikes, die cracks, double dies, especially in the In God We Trust or Liberty areas, or planchet errors, which can make such a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to specialized collectors. Historically, the 1970s were a time of economic change in America. Inflation, rising metal costs, and debates over coinage materials set the stage for later modifications to the penny's composition. The In God We Trust motto, which first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War and was permanently mandated on all coins by an act of Congress in 1955, represents the national spirit and religious heritage that continued into the modern minting era. Meanwhile, the word liberty, long a hallmark of U.S. coinage, underscores America's foundational values. The Denver Mint, identified by the D mark, has operated since 1906 and continues to produce billions of coins annually for circulation. Most 1975 D cents were struck on high-speed presses and released into the economy, meaning examples found today typically show heavy wear from decades of use. For coin collectors, numismatists, examining a 1975 D Lincoln cent involves analyzing details such as strike sharpness, surface luster, color, red, red-brown or brown, and mint mark clarity. A bright red specimen, graded MS 66 red or higher, is considered the most desirable. Although not a rare coin in general, the 1975 D Lincoln cent remains a small but enduring piece of American history, symbolizing both the nation's reverence for Abraham Lincoln and its evolving monetary traditions. From a cultural perspective, it stands as an artifact of everyday life in 1970s America, an era marked by social transformation, technological progress, and inflation that made even a single penny matter. The continued presence of these coins in change jars and collections across the country reflects the lasting impact of Lincoln's legacy and the deep familiarity of the cent in American pockets. While the 1975 D penny will rarely make anyone rich, it represents a fascinating intersection of art, economics, and national identity, tiny yet mighty, humble yet historically profound. Next top. The 1993 D United States of America 1 cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln penny, is a small but historically significant piece of American currency. Minted by the Denver Mint, the D Mint mark beneath the date identifies its place of origin. The obverse front of the coin features the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, originally designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Above Lincoln's image are the words, "In God We Trust," a national motto first added to coins in the mid-19th century and representing the country's spiritual heritage. To the left of Lincoln's bust is the word liberty, symbolizing one of America's founding ideals, and to the right appears the date, 1993, followed by the D mint mark, showing it was produced in Denver, Colorado. The reverse, back, of the coin in 1993 still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, which had been used on pennies from 1959 until 2008, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. Above the memorial, in bold letters reads, United States of America, with the motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, inscribed just above the monument, symbolizing the unity of the nation's diverse states and people. At the bottom, the denomination 1 cent is clearly written, confirming its face value. The 1993 D penny is composed primarily of zinc, 97.5%, and coated with copper, 2.5%, following a major change in 1982 when the U.S. Mint replaced the heavier solid bronze composition, 95% copper, with a lighter and more cost-effective zinc core due to rising copper prices. Each coin weighs about 2.5 grams, measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, and has a smooth edge. In 1993, over 6 billion pennies were struck at the Denver Mint, making the 1993 D issue common in circulation and generally not rare. However, coins in mint state, MS, condition, particularly those graded MS, 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, can be desirable to collectors due to their flawless surfaces and sharp detail. Collectors sometimes look for rare varieties among 1993 D pennies, such as off-center strikes, double dies, die cracks, or plating bubbles. A true double die obverse, DDO, for instance, can dramatically increase a coin's value if the doubling is visible in the date or lettering. Additionally, because the coin's thin copper plating can sometimes separate from the zinc core, collectors occasionally find examples with plating errors, exposing the silver-colored zinc beneath. These can be interesting finds, though most are considered minor minting defects. From a historical perspective, the 1993 D penny reflects an era when the Lincoln Memorial reverse still stood as a national icon on America's smallest coin, symbolizing both Lincoln's legacy and national unity. Though worth only a cent in spending power, it embodies over a century of American heritage, technological minting evolution, and cultural symbolism. In uncirculated condition, a 1993 D Lincoln cent might fetch anywhere from 10 cents to a few dollars, depending on grade, while extremely high-grade examples certified by major grading agencies have occasionally sold for $100 or more at auction. Most, however, remain common in everyday pocket change, a humble but enduring reminder of the values of faith, in God we trust, liberty, and unity, E pluribus unum, that define the United States of America. Next top. The 1982 D 1 cent coin from the United States of America, bearing the inscriptions, In God We Trust and Liberty, represents an important transitional moment in U.S. coinage history. The D mint mark located beneath the date signifies that the coin was minted at the Denver Mint in Colorado, one of the primary facilities of the U.S. Mint. The year 1982 is particularly notable in the history of the American cent because it marked a major composition change. The U.S. Mint shifted from the long-used 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy, which had been used since 1962, to a new copper-plated zinc composition made up of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. This change occurred due to the rising cost of copper in the early 1980s, which made it more expensive to produce pennies than their actual face value. As a result, during 1982, both copper and zinc versions of the 1 cent coin were produced, making it a transitional year that holds great interest for collectors and numismatists. The obverse front of the coin features the famous portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, which first appeared on the cent in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Around Lincoln's profile are the inscriptions, In God We Trust along the upper rim, Liberty to the left, and the date 1982 to the right, followed by the D mint mark for Denver. The reverse back design, used until 2008, features the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, along with the inscriptions United States of America across the top and E pluribus unum, out of many one, above the memorial, with the denomination 1 cent below. If you look closely at the memorial design, a tiny image of Lincoln's seated statue can even be seen inside the memorial between the columns, a small but famous detail of this design. Because 1982 was a transition year, there were 7 different varieties of Lincoln cents produced, which makes this date especially fascinating. These varieties include large date and small date versions, each struck in either copper or zinc and with mint marks from either Philadelphia, no mint mark, or Denver, D. The 1982 D in particular is known in 2 main metal compositions, one made of copper and another of zinc. Copper cents from 1982 D weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while the zinc ones weigh about 2.5 grams, a difference easily noticeable with a precise digital scale. Collectors often check the weight to determine the metal type, since the appearance of both coins is visually identical. The 1982 D copper cent is scarcer compared to the zinc type, which makes it more desirable for collectors, especially in mint state condition. Adding to the intrigue, a rare error variety, the 1982 D small date copper cent, has been discovered and is considered one of the great modern rarities of U.S. coinage. For decades, it was thought that no small date 1982 D copper cents existed, but in 2016, a few authentic examples were confirmed by professional grading services such as PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company. These coins have sold for over $15,000 to $20,000 depending on condition. The error occurred because a small date die intended for zinc planchets was accidentally used to strike a few leftover copper planchets during the transition period. Therefore, finding a genuine 1982 D small date copper cent would be an extraordinary discovery for any coin collector. To determine whether your 1982 D cent is made of copper or zinc, you can perform a simple weighing test or even a sound test. Copper coins have a heavier, more solid ring when dropped on a hard surface, while zinc cents sound duller and lighter. Visually, copper cents also tend to have a slightly deeper reddish tone compared to the lighter color of zinc ones, though toning and age can make this distinction subtle. For serious verification, professional grading or metal analysis is recommended. The vast majority of 1982 D cents are zinc-based, but because of the rare copper variety, every 1982 D cent is worth checking. In terms of value, circulated 1982 D 1 cent coins generally hold face value 1 cent, or slightly above if kept in excellent condition, as billions were minted, more than 6 billion from the Denver Mint alone. However, uncirculated examples, or those with particularly sharp strikes and original luster, can be worth 10 to 50 cents to casual collectors. Certified MS-65, mint state, or higher examples may be valued at a few dollars, depending on grading demand. The rare small-date copper variety, on the other hand, commands high prices in auctions due to its extreme scarcity. Even among regular issues, collectors often seek to assemble complete 1982 sets, which include all 7 varieties, as an educational representation of the mint's transition that year. Symbolically, the 1982 D 1 cent coin stands as a reflection of both American history and economic change. The obverse.